teen story, if that, after that.
So anyways, they claim there's at least 30 states that require voters to show some sort of form of identification. 8 states, including, you ready for this one? You know this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. Alabama, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Louisiana, Michigan, South Dakota, and Rhode Island now require photo IDs. Our Secretary of State, who's previously been against this so far, is not commenting.
I haven't heard anything from their office, other than the signature sheets will be available on Tuesday.
And, he's stating there's been very few cases of voter fraud in the state. Again, I ask, how do you know? And and then it says, also I understand the issue here is pretty much split along party lines. Democrats would like it easier, would like to ease registration requirements. They want to allow same-day registration, while the Republicans seek to strengthen the regulations.
Yeah, and again, I mean, there are flavors to this issue. There are other kinds of fraud that goes on. There's a whole bunch of different things. The only thing that this would do is combat a certain kind of voter fraud. It doesn't do everything, but it does something, and I think it also gives the public a sense of an additional sense of faith in the system.
Right, and I'm reading this as from a news article here. Democrats would like to, they want to see same-day registration. Do they feel the same way about gun registration and ownership, I wonder?
I don't know.
I mean,
somehow I don't think so, but...
I mean, what's good for one is good for all. So you need to collect some signatures. Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
And the short answer, again, backing up a little bit, the Attorney General's office refused to certify the question. So I filed an appeal to the state's highest court. The Attorney General's office agreed to an order. And what that basically means is an order.
He's a lawyer.
Well, the upshot of it is that we can go ahead and collect the signatures, because we need over close to 69,000 good ones, which means
68,911, which in this state you means you
100,
need about 150.
But we need those to the city and town clerks by November 23rd. Do they have to check the IDs on those
people?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Then you know where to go.
Well, I should back up, because no, the town clerks will look at them, make sure they're registered voters, and then the Secretary of State's office will look at them. So we have to get all of those to the town clerks by November 23rd. Obviously, if we sat around waiting for the Supreme Court to rule, that time would be burnt up. So that's why the order. That's why we can go ahead and collect the signatures while that appeal is pending.
So in your opinion, is the Attorney General's office cooperating then, or are they?
Well, they did. They cooperated too. They even submitted, an agreed upon order that I was fine with. That said, sure, go ahead, get your signatures.
And they're not doing the constitutional rights. They're doing their complaint is that the only acceptable ID costs $25.
Yeah, and that's exactly the thing that the Attorney General's office hung their hat on. What you can, like I mentioned earlier, their process looks to see if what you're proposing to ask is something you can ask in the form of a ballot question. One of the things you can't do is impact the freedom of elections. So,
and you're not trying to do that.
And I'm not trying to do that. And one argument is, if somebody cancels out my vote by committing fraud, then my freedom of elections have been impacted too. But the upshot of it is that hypothetical person who does not already have an ID and cannot afford the $25, which is the minimum that the Registry of Motor Vehicles charges to get an ID, a picture ID. The person who can't afford that, then that person's freedom of elections are impacted, and that's why the Attorney General refused to certify it.
Okay, but the legislature can do something, or the governor can do something. The governor's already said he wouldn't sign anything anyways.
Right. And we're looking at this in a couple of different ways. My position is that's not fatal from a constitutional perspective. I can go into that or not. But the other part of it too is this wouldn't go on the ballot until November of 2012.
Correct.
And nobody's going to get impacted by this until the next election after that.
Right.
So there's plenty of time for the legislature to look and address that $25 issue if they're so inclined. And I believe I'm being told that that's coming.
Right. So. And voting in America is like like this great privilege that we have that a lot of places don't have, right? And what happened? Why aren't people, you know, proud to do this? And, you know, I mean, I just don't see where that many people don't have an ID. I don't see what the problem is. I think it's the fact that they have any kind of ID that may be a problem. And you know, for whatever reason, and now it's even getting more crazy now, because we had a gentleman come out in the paper today, and he's equating this to Jim Crow era things. I mean, it's really getting out of hand now. I mean, what do you think when you see something like that? Is this guy needs maybe a checkup from the neck up? I mean, this is bad news.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of knew that these kinds of things were going to be leveled. Obviously, that's not the intention, and obviously, you know, I'm not against, you know, folks registering to vote and voting, and I don't want to put up. I'm not trying to suppress anybody's right to vote. I just want to make sure that the people who vote are the right people.
This is William Robinson Jr. He's chairman of the NAACP New England Area Conference Political Action Committee, and he's saying it's a barrier, and I just don't see it.
And I think they joined with Mass Vote was our opponent before the Attorney General's office, and I think they're among the groups that
and they're more of a Hispanic-based group, I think.
NAACP? Well,
no, not the NAACP, the first group.
Mass Vote?
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about that, you know, again, they claim that they bring themselves across as a nonpartisan voting group. And then I looked at their website, and one of their 3 goals for, I think it was last summer, was working with progressive groups to register voters. And I'm thinking, all right, if you're supposed to be nonpartisan, why wouldn't you work with any group of people to get people registered to vote? So.
Wow. So you've got all these barriers and all these people coming out after you now. Now, basically, they're you know, they're not saying it's a racist thing, but they're saying you're trying to throw up barriers and this and that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about people who are supporting you. And obviously,
I'm overwhelmed.
You're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have residents as far away as East Longmeadow. And
and obviously there were 2 big cycles for the news story. The first one was when this was filed. The second one was when the Attorney General's office refused to certify, made the blanket announcement as to all ballot questions. But yeah, I mean, once this hit the first news story that this was a proposed ballot question, I mean, I was getting contacted by people, and still am, from all across the state, and including people who say that they're otherwise not political. They just have wondered for decades why they've never had to do this. So it's good to see, you know, if nothing else, we're not suppressing. We're getting more people to pay attention.
I know I don't know. I come from a different side of the tracks or something, but I just don't see a downside of this. And I am perplexed at the amount of people that you know, are coming up against you. But again, you do have an incredible amount of support, and usually, you know, hopefully you got the silent majority aren't being so silent anymore.
I hope so. And you know, again, if nothing else, too, I mean, if you are required to show an ID to vote, I mean, having an ID helps you in so many other ways too.
It's not
if
a punishment.
If it encourages people to get ID, then that opens up so many doors to people who didn't already have the ID to begin with. So far from suppressing or harming people that way, I think that actually helps folks.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you'd think they would want an ID.
Yeah.
And again, there's so many things that opens up so many doors.
Yeah.
And it's not a barrier. And again, it's a key.
Exactly.
It's a key,
exactly.
and
I love that. I may steal that.
That's all right, no problem. We had one last week too that the Chamber of Commerce borrowed from me.
Okay.
But and again, and then now Governor Patrick's come out, and he said that he hasn't seen the specific thing or not. Now, you can take him at his word or not, but he said he wouldn't support anything that makes it harder for people to vote. And again, I don't see how this does that.
Yeah. Well, again, and here's where we started about the 2 different tracks. You know, I just heard from the Secretary of State's office today. The sheets will be available next Tuesday. So we're moving forward. What was going yesterday and today was the legislature had, I think, 12 or 13 proposals, including Betty Poirier had introduced legislation as well. So all of those were being talked about at the elections committee on Beacon Hill.
Right.
So
lots of hearings.
Right.
Big
Exactly.
hearings.
So when the governor says he's not familiar with all of them, I guess I'll take him at his word and say he hasn't looked at all 13 of them that some committee is looking at and what the differences are between them. But I am a little bit disappointed that he sees this conceptually, at least, as voter suppression. Again, like we talked about, I think it gives a lot of people a sense of confidence in the system.
Sense of confidence, sense of security.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it just I don't know. It just seems all good. But then again, you have an attorney general who has come out and said it's not illegal to be illegal in Massachusetts. That was a great quote. And, and then the governor went on. When he got reelected, the first his first speech was he's opening up the state to illegal people, and it's like. It kind of sends a mixed message. And it's like, we're just, if you're a citizen of this country, you register to vote, you should be proud that you have that. A lot of countries don't. And you should be proud, and you should be able to go and exercise your right to vote and be able to show your ID and say, yeah, I'm part of it.
I keep thinking about, and I've mentioned this to a couple of folks, I think it was a Time or Newsweek cover. Remember when they first were able to vote in Baghdad and Iraq, and you had the folks with their fingers dipped in the paint that shows that they voted? I mean, arguably that's more voter security than what we're doing here.
We don't have any.
So
and again, and they do the same thing here in Mansfield. I know with the town meeting. You check in the same way at a town meeting.
Yeah, you're checked off on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they know I'm me?
Yeah.
They don't.
And realistically, and I had thoughts of this going back for quite a while, but in a town like Mansfield, we're getting bigger. We're getting far bigger than we used to be, but we're still, the poll workers know folks. They've been doing that for a long time. Obviously, this kind of thing happens more in your bigger cities, your more impersonal places where you just don't know you don't know your neighbors.
No.
So.
And I tell you, I vote in every election. I mean, and I don't know every poll worker that goes down there, but I mean, I know the town clerk.
Yeah.
She knows me. A few of the a few people. There's always someone in the auditorium that knows who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that may not be a good thing. Some people look at it. Well, at least we know where he is.
Not because of trouble somewhere else.
Yeah. So, anyways, so this is a big doing. Did you expect this? I mean, all of this? I mean, it would seem like just such a simple thing.
Sometimes I sit back and go, wow, what did I get myself into? But no, yeah, I mean, I guess, I've always thought it was a good idea. I heard a news story. I said, let's do this. And, sometimes, just sitting here today realizing that we're getting the sheets on Tuesday and that, it's basically 2 months to get that many signatures. It's, I'm still sort of
I have my
numb
pen
from all
ready.
of this.
If you had them with you tonight, and I know they're not ready.
Yeah, that would have been a good thing to do at the table here.
I would be I give you my word, I will sign
all
that.
right.
And if you need help with signatures.
1, 2, no.
You're going to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I mean, I've gotten.
My question is, I guess, before we get further on here, is you're not going to let these people, some of these things are just outright crazy things they're saying. They're going back to slaves and slave ownership and everything. And to me, I'm sorry, that's just not. That there's no place for that.
Yeah.
This in here.
Yeah.
But you're not going to let.
And you can address those things. You can address those hurdles that are perceived or real or just, whatever. You can address that while also dealing with the bigger issue, which is making sure that, the vast majority of voters who want to make sure that their system is protected and intact.
And you would think candidates were for it because they don't want to say my election. And the last thing you want to do is say my election was tainted. Okay? And so But I just want to reaffirm your commitment here. You're not going to let these fringe groups and whatever. They're not going to back you down and make you change your mind. And
No.
you're committed to follow this all the way through to the very end, right?
Yep. Yep.
You do have some legislative support out there.
I do.
I know our representative, Jay Barrows, is behind you.
Is one of the 10 original signers, yeah.
Okay, and I'm sure you have plenty others, and probably plenty of them been the guests on this show. And then, have you done anything with the Senate yet?